Welcome to The Cleaning, a podcast about Apple TV's show Silo. This podcast is where we take our weekly look at how the episode compared to events in the books. We call it our book versus show spoiler episode. And in this podcast, we're going to be breaking down Season 3, Episode 3. We're going to compare the book to this specific episode. We're going to try to figure out how did the show end up with this amnesia storyline for Juliette. And as we focus on Juliette's amnesia, I'm going to look at this image which was released by Apple TV before Season 3 was out yet, which may explain how Juliette's going to get her memory back. That is a show-only spoiler, but I'm going to cover it in the amnesia section. Plus, we're going to look and compare TV show Daniel to book Daniel. Let me say, I was also going to do a breakdown of a character in the books called Mick Webb, who through 3 episodes has not appeared yet on the show. And I thought, boy, maybe they won't include him at all. I haven't noticed or seen any press material saying there's going to be a Mick Webb in the show. And so I was going to talk about that, but in the description of next week, Season 3, Episode 4, it says Daniel seeks help from a friend. So there's a chance that Mick Webb would be introduced next week. And so I'll talk about him next week, whether he is introduced or not. And also in the description of next week's Episode 4, it says, the race to evade Camille leads Juliette to a shocking discovery. Boy, that sounds like the show-only spoiler I've been covering on the last 2 book versus show spoiler podcasts. So we'll talk about that maybe briefly at the end of this as well. Plus, I'm going to get to your feedback. There is so much. But let's start off by taking a look at kind of what I talked about last week in what Season 3, Episode 3 kind of led us to think about. Now, last week, I mainly focused on the character of Anna Thurman, and how in the books, she is Daniel crazy. She really has a lust, a passion. She's in love with Daniel. She has an unhealthy obsession with Daniel. I got this feedback from Deb Hartley, who said, I suspect that in the show, Anna is actually responsible for writing the pact. The show mentions that Anna writes her mother, Senator Thurman's speeches and legislation, so that seems to be foreshadowing that she's involved in the whole plan. Now, in the book, we're told that Victor, Dr. Victor, wrote the order and the pact. But the show could change that. I don't think that's a big deal. And so what do you guys think? As always, go down in the comments and let me know. On Anna, I got this feedback from Zombie Italian, who wrote, I'm wondering if they're just going to keep all romance out of the series and shorten the story. No marriage or side piece for Daniel. Same with the Juliette Lucas romance. Well, hold on. I would say that, boy, there really, through 3 episodes of Season 3, has not been much romance. But in this episode, we did have a playful moment or two between Helen and Daniel. It didn't seem like romance that's going to lead to a great love. We also had Lucas rescuing Juliette, saving her from the rat poison. So there are at least hints that there could be romance. But I would say if they're going to do it, they've got to increase romance an awful lot. I would also say in the Daniel-Helen storyline, it doesn't make sense. The tragedy, and this is a tragedy. This is Romeo and Juliet. We're not, what happens to them is horrific, but it's mainly horrific because of how in love they are. So if the show were to remove that, boy, I'd have a lot of questions. I also got this feedback from a user with the handle Media Maverick who said, Anna sets off my gaydar. Well, Anna could be gay in the show, but she and Helen really butted heads last week, so I have a hard time believing that they'll fall in love, and it'll be the tragedy of the 2 of them, but who's to say with the show, you never know, right? You never know. Now, last week, I also did talk about how with the gender switch from Senator Thurman being a male character in the book to a female character on the show, how is that going to work when Daniel impersonates Senator Thurman later on in the story? Reenie6, great listener, gave me this feedback. They wrote, they are absolutely going to skip the part where Daniel is mistaken for Senator Thurman. Joda Jackson wrote, I don't really have an issue with the gender swap. And Karen in WPNY wrote, maybe instead of Daniel impersonating Senator Thurman, it'll be Daniel's sister Charlotte impersonating Senator Thurman. And that certainly could be. Do you guys have any thoughts? Through 3 episodes, it feels like we've talked about this every episode, but hey, go down in those comments and let me know. Last week, when talking about the PEZ dispenser, I said, the PEZ dispenser could be how Daniel gets his memories back. And obviously, a lot of people had questions about that because the PEZ dispenser is in silo 18 and Daniel would not be in silo 18. But what I meant is Daniel would see it and that would cause him to remember. But following up on that, we got some great feedback from TR1ST wrote, I think the PEZ dispenser might be how Helen gets her memories back because she would be in silo 18, she would have that PEZ dispenser, and her memory of it could mean that Helen could be the very first flame keeper, and that could be a secret group that she starts to keep memories of the before times around. Wayne Rogers wrote, the PEZ dispenser is in silo 18. So, Daniel's in silo 1 in the books, and his memories are restored due to the fact that he had been dosed with the nanotech while visiting Thurman. So, yeah, again, my thought was, well, a shorthand way to do it is Troy is there in silo 1. He doesn't really remember anything. He's been given these drugs because of Dr. Victor gave him the drugs, I believe, in the book because silo 12 had crashed. That's such an emotional thing to lose 10,000 people, to lose a silo. And so that was one of the reasons why Troy was given these drugs. And I thought, seeing the PEZ dispenser could help him remember. But that's just my thoughts. As always, what do you think? Now, it's real easy, as I've proven, to be real upset with this Juliette amnesia storyline. And it's easy to say, it's boring, it kills forward momentum. But as I said in our non-spoiler podcast on episode 3, the main thing is that Juliette, the reason why people like her is she's an active character. We are in a puzzle box, a mystery box show. And so we love characters who go out and try to get us answers. And through 2 episodes of season 3, with her amnesia, she's not doing that. And so nobody's doing that. And so it's like, hey, the show isn't giving us the one thing we want in a puzzle box show. I started to wonder, well, how did we get here? And I don't mean, how did everybody end up in silo 18 like on the show? How did they get there? I mean, how did we end up with Juliette having amnesia in the weird predicament we're in? If you look at season 1 of Silo, they went far afield from the book in a lot of ways. But when the end of season 1 came together, it was really, these story beats were still happening. Juliette had been sheriff. Bernard was forcing her to go out to clean. Her friends in supply, like Walker, got her suit good so she could survive the cleaning. It got there a weird way compared to the books, but it did get there, and so it was doing the story. Season 2 felt like it was doing the exact same thing. Really far afield, Lucas is in the mines. Things are very different. But at the very end of season 2, it really did feel like it was matching up with the book. Juliette is returning from silo 17. She's returning to silo 18. Lucas is Bernard's shadow. Bernard is very frustrated. There feels like there's a revolution and a rebellion in the silo. It's lining up so perfectly with the book. But then they do a couple of hard left turns. And the biggest hard left turn is suddenly, wait a minute, Camille, you're going to be the new head of IT. That should have been our sign that the show was really going to do something very different at the beginning of season 3. And so let's talk about why the show did this, why the show had this hard pivot to do something that wasn't in the book. So at the end of the first book, Wool, Juliette returns to silo 18. She's taken down to the hospital in the 30s. Everybody's happy she's back. She's getting notes from porters. Everybody's so thrilled Juliette is back in the silo and safe. Billings, who we'd had a question about the whole book long, Peter Billings, not Paul Billings, but the book's Peter Billings, has revealed himself to be a good guy. He's the one who forced Bernard out to clean. Juliette is made mayor, and Juliette's kind of platform, she's like, if I'm going to be mayor, I want a platform to give the truth a chance. She believes all these silos were created to give everybody a chance, but to keep them separate so that if one silo got sick, it wouldn't affect another silo and everybody'd die. And she's like, I want to tell everybody this. And her kind of council of experts like Lucas and like Peter Billings, they're all like, well, hold off. Maybe let's talk about this. And also Juliette can communicate with the other silos. She goes and she says, hey, silo 17, Solo and the kids, I'm okay. I survived. I'll be back. We'll support each other. It's real kind of happy, warm ending. Then at the beginning of the third book, Dust, what is Juliette doing there? Well, she has gone down to the digger at the bottom of the silo, and she wants to take the backup generator and drill out to silo 17 and connect the two silos. And this is causing a lot of drama, which you think would be good for a television show, where people are like, wait a minute, you're taking our only backup generator and going to use it to power this thing, and you're going to drill? That seems real dangerous. People are freaking out. Even Juliette's friends are like, hey, I love you, but do you have to do this? Should we be doing this? This is scaring some people. So that feels like that could be great drama. And it's building up to a point where in the third book, Dust, there are a lot of people who are like, you want to drill and go outside and do all that? You want to drill to another silo? You're risking our lives. You're talking about going outside. You are crazy. And that's where the internal drama in the silo comes from. The show has flipped that and made it the outsiders are the real dramatic problems in the silo. The people who believe outside is fine, which is a fine choice. But the big thing, why, again, Amnesia, and why have Camille, new head of IT, and the algorithm on the show be such a powerful thing? And that's what I really think it is. The show even gave Juliette oh, wait a minute, the safeguard procedure is going to go, you've got to turn off this pipe now. So the show, if it had wanted to and followed its own story, it could be go, 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 go. So why did the show give Juliette amnesia and have this, what I consider a delaying tactic? The thought I would have is that the one thing that having Shift happen before Dust, before we get back to Juliette and she's thinking of drilling from Silo 18 to Silo 17, is that the reader has known that the people in Silo 1, the big bads, that Juliette has a support system there, that Donald, Troy, Daniel on the show, they're going to help her. And there's no easy way for the show to explain, oh, hey, Juliette's doing these crazy things like trying to close the pipe of the safeguard. And that's got to be real tense. But of course, all viewers would be like, well, why doesn't the algorithm release the pipe and do the safeguard? Why isn't it doing the safeguard? Juliette's doing all this stuff that's endangering it. The AI should stop this. But of course, as book readers, we know, once again, Juliette has support in Silo 1 from Troy, Daniel, Donald. And so the show doesn't have that. So for some reason, the show still wants that. The show still wants the algorithm to be kind of the big bad, right? That's really the problem. Yes, judicial raiders are bad. Yes, Camille might turn evil. But the real problem is this overseer on the show. And the show didn't want to take that away and let the audience know just yet, and couldn't easily let the audience know just yet, hey, somebody in Silo 1 is helping Juliette. So it feels like this amnesia is really just a stall tactic to possibly explain why the algorithm isn't just doing the safeguard immediately and saying to hell with these people. They're breaking the pact. They're doing things they shouldn't. Let's get rid of it. That's my thought. Why they introduced this memory loss, which I've really not been a fan of. But once again, who cares what I think? I want to know what you think. Why do you think the show has to have the big bad algorithm still be a threat right now in the story? I mean, we know they're bad people in Silo 1 besides Troy, but why do you think they had to do it? Why do you think the show felt it was so important to keep the AI algorithm be the big bad? Go down in the comments. Let me know. Before the season even premiered, Apple TV released an image labeled Silo Photo 030501, which really does, now that we've seen a couple episodes, explain how Juliette's going to get past amnesia. Now, because the photo is labeled 0305, this means Juliette will probably still have a bit of amnesia in episode 4 and won't truly resolve it until at least episode 5. If you look at this image, Juliette is looking at her badge, the sheriff's badge, which the red level relic dealer, who had been fooling around with George back pre-season 1, she had a trade with the Juliette fanatics, and this was the item, the Juliette badge. So in this image, you see Juliette looking at her badge, holding it, physical memories, trying to remember. You also, to the right of the image, you see Walker and Robert Sims. Sims is definitely coming over to the good guys. Camille isn't in this footage, so is this our first tangible proof that Robert's going to go against his wife? Patrick Kennedy is in this image. Lucas is in this image. And I believe this is the red level relics dealer, even though it's a little out of focus. Can't say for sure. So Juliette's still going to have amnesia at episode 5, the midway point of the season. Oh my lord. Frustrating, yes, but Hopefully it doesn't frustrate you too much. It frustrates me, but maybe to a maybe not red level of frustration. What do you guys think? This is a show officially released image, and it seems to be how Juliette comes back to us. Before I get to more of your feedback, let's talk about how book Donald and TV show Daniel differ. And the biggest change, I think, is yes, okay, he's married to Helen in the book. They're just now meeting and really haven't started a romance, as I said earlier, Helen and Daniel in the show. But the biggest thing, I think, in the book, Daniel is kind of caught up in this. He's kind of pulled along through this. He never really suspects how evil this silo project could be until the very end. Maybe he's gullible, maybe he's naive in following Senator Thurman, following Anna Thurman, and his buddy Mick, who Mick knows way more than Daniel does, but just following them. And so he never questions it. Here in the show, they've made him be an investigator. He already knows that Dr. Victor is terrible, right? Like, you can tell that he's going to believe Helen, like, hey, these things they're doing to my sister are wrong. So how is this character then going to be a part of participating in creating the silo system? That'll be real interesting to see how they pull that off. Now, it's maybe good to make Daniel not be so unquestioning and be duped as he was kind of duped in the book. But by not being duped, is that going to mean Daniel goes along with it for some reason? Like, is he going to learn, okay, what is really happening and the ideas and then go along with it? Is it better to be duped, or is it better to be tricked into going along with it, which is what the show really feels like it's doing with Daniel Donald? I know so many listeners find the second book Shift to be their favorite, and Donald/Daniel is the main character really of that book. So you guys tell me, what do you think? Do you like these two changes they're making with Daniel, or do you wish he was more like in the book? Go down in the comments and let me know. Now, while we're speaking about Daniel, I want to take a look at this. This is his congressional badge that the dark web hacker hacked. And we learned that this story is actually happening in the past. Daniel's supposed to be a new congressman from Georgia. And you'll note that when it says document access history, he got access on November 20th of 2024. And he got access to, this says defense, on November 25th of 2024 and November 27th of 2024. Those dates predate when they were even filming season 3, so I don't know how they picked these dates, but I would assume that if the silos don't exist now, and we're going to see, hey, the silos are built, we could be going, 15 to 20 years into the future. And so maybe this is supposed to take place. These scenes with Daniel and Helen are supposed to take place in 2024. And then by the time the silos are built, it's maybe, 2044, 2054. What do you guys think? Is this just an innocent mistake somebody put on these? Or should we trust that all these dates, like his last access to the Capitol building South Wing entrance, was on November 27th of 2024? What do you think? Go down in the comments and let me know. And speaking of your comments, the final thing I want to talk about is, of course, the big show spoiler, Bernard. Let me get to some of your feedback first. And that is, Shirley said, while I missed the Lucas character of the book, Bernard was a bad guy better in the show than the book. Philip gave me this feedback. I love the books, but some things about the TV series are an improvement. For example, Tim Robbins' Bernard is far more rounded. He's a more interesting character than book Bernard. And Tim's Retro Corner wrote, you know what? Tim Robbins is still in the credits, and so I wouldn't be surprised if Bernard comes back in some capacity. And so, once again, I've said it every week, this is a show spoiler, so hopefully you're okay with it if you're listening to this. But based on that hint, based on that description of next week's episode where the race to evade Camille leads Juliette to a shocking discovery, I tend to think that shocking discovery is going to be Tim Robbins. What do you guys think? Are you excited about that? Are you interested in Mick Webb? Did you find him an interesting character? And again, I'm going to talk about him next week, but give me all your Mick Webb feedback so I can read it as I talk about the character. All right. Again, not much I can see about where these other storylines are going and how they're tying in. We've had 3 episodes and Senator Thurman only in 1. They still haven't on screen introduced the Colin Hanks per Stenson character that you think is going to be a big important part of this, that seems to be financing the silo. What do you guys think of Victor? Victor, Victor's death in the second book, Shift, is a big part of it. And so is it great that we're learning more about Dr. Victor Serkovich here on the show early? All that feedback I want to know, and I'll talk to you next week.